and these are still 6-minute problems, so they do have to limit themselves. And there were definitely some problems where I got very frustrated. I think I gave an audible guffaw. Oh, like, well, they threw that one in there. I think in hindsight, those are probably the problems that were the throwaways. That's what I tell myself.
So, in short, it is doable, even if you don't have the background, as long as I think the common recurring theme is that you should have the willingness to learn.
A lot of the basis. I mean, there's power engineering stuff in the FE, and I think you even allude to the PE when you're giving the FE course. My day job is mostly Python and a little bit of C and a lot of front end development these days, especially with recent events in the world that makes my area unique. So, job hunting will certainly be interesting if I choose to do that and not stay in my current career. When you have that initial motivation and you get into something, you find the things that help motivate you because they talk about that initial bit where you're trying to get that motivation. And once you do, the rest takes over. You just really enjoy it. And now you don't want to stop. But I have learned recently through, I think it was a YouTube short maybe that said this. You can say that it's motivation in the beginning, but when you learn to have it disciplined, don't even feel like you need to be motivated to it. Just discipline yourself.
Hi, Charles.
Hey, Wasim.
How's it going?
Going well. How about you?
Very well, thank you. So, first of all, thanks for your time, Charles. And I know you're a busy guy, father of two, working with full-time job and all of the good stuff. But we are here today to go over your P Power success story. So, you've already done one interview with me with your FE electrical journey, which was very interesting. You started my program after a couple of failed attempts, and then we got it done in the first attempt, right? And
Right.
then you dived into PE Power. So um, let's pick it up from where we left. You took the FE exam, I believe, the successful attempt in summer 2023. Is that right?
Yeah, that was actually, I believe, February when I
February.
successfully passed that.
Okay.
And then the PE, I took it the first time in the summer. I believe it was August was my first attempt. That was 2023, and then I took it again in December and passed on that second attempt.
Right.
So I took some months to study there, and you had recommended some. I went back through your on-demand course, and the more I studied, the more I learned about that. And I think, but the two biggest resources for me were your online on-demand exams. Those were great. And then I remember we discussed after I took the first exam that I was kind of right on the line there, about that 65% line, right on the cusp. And you'd mentioned taking that second exam that's much harder. And I remember just kind of giving up on it. The beginning half of it, I just gave up. But the second attempt, I didn't give up. And I marked where I was doing poor in and why I was getting those wrong. And just taking that time to understand those and retaking the NCES practice exam, I feel like that got me over the edge. Now, I know those exam diagnostics, you can't really know what you're passing on those. There's no sure way. They don't tell you how they grade them, but I like to think I was close. But who really knows?
Right.
And I think doing that extra study time and putting those hours in really pushed me over, and I can successfully say that I've passed.
Yeah, I like to unpack your P power journey. So this is a very good overview. Jumped more or less right after passing your FE. Went through my on-demand and live training in the first attempt. Couldn't make it happen. You also had a life event happening at that time, right?
Yes.
Your daughter was born around that time when you were taking the exam. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think we had conversation about it, and you were aggressively trying to get the exam out of the way before
Yes.
before your baby came along, right?
Yes, I definitely rushed that. I was studying. I did the entire workbook of yours, those 600 or 700 plus problems, in the week before my exam. Terrible idea. Don't recommend that. I didn't give myself time to really understand those because I did it again after I'd failed that first attempt, and I went back through all the problems I did bad on, and I made sure I understood why. Why did I get those wrong, and what did that mean? And if I didn't understand it, I either emailed you, I posted on Reddit, or I looked for some way of understanding why those were wrong. And my daughter, our second daughter, because we have another one that's a toddler, she was born first. So our second daughter, she was born midsummer, and I remember that week leading up to that, my wife's due date was right after the exam. So we were joking that I would have to go, to the hospital, for lunch and the exam, and that I would get to pass the exam because I had to go to, to labor. But we planned that well. I thought, but setting yourself that sort of deadline is maybe a little extreme. But I knew that I wouldn't have any sleep after the baby was born. And then when I saw I didn't pass, and we had the baby on the way, it wasn't a pleasant feeling, but I was happy that our baby was born, healthy, and that was motivating. And so I took a few weeks on your recommendation to just relax, not think about it, and I went right back into it. But my second try going back into it was all practical. And I made the analogy in the FE video that you have for me about playing soccer and then practicing. I did a lot of practicing because unlike the FE, which I would say is probably more theory based, what have you learned in your degree kind of, this is expecting you to have industry knowledge, and I don't have that. I am an electrical engineer with a computers and digital background, which means I didn't take any power classes. I didn't know what slip was until I took the course. You laugh all you want, but I know better now, and enough to pass the exam. They say stamp in your field of competence, and I'll say I'm very competent in your exam, but without the experience, I wouldn't stamp any power engineering documents, not until I had the experience. But I think I could actually pass a technical interview even after not having that experience. That's how detailed your course got in some ways. And it's been a great journey. I recommend anyone take the power exam. I did not take the computer engineering exam because we discussed that there's not a lot of material out there for that. There's not a lot of jobs that are asking for that. And I did a search on my government's my state's page just to see what the difference in engineers between power and software was, and it's staggering. So definitely get something that is, like you said, more job oriented. And I'm glad I took it, and it has been a wild journey, and I would not recommend any other course because I have no regrets to the whole experience. I know I would have passed it on my first attempt had I had that industry knowledge. No doubt about it.
All right, great. Charles, so a couple of segues based on your overview. The fact that you have a non-power background, right? And after we had the conversation, once you passed the FE and you were very transparent about the fact that Wasim, I don't have power background, I haven't much worked in the industry, like I haven't taken any core courses and whatnot. So can you still help me out? And my response, I guess, at that point in time, and this is a typical response I give to my students, right? That especially if you have been in previous failed attempts, that through the FE program you probably learned a thing or two, right? Enough that you pass the exam. So if
Yes.
you are willing to learn, if you're willing to put in the time and effort, which you clearly were, then even with no background, right, we can get to a level where you can develop that foundation just using the program and get the job done. So that did not deter you. In fact, the attitude that you adopted, to be honest, is very impressive because this exam is so difficult, and I'll be blunt about it, that a lot of power systems engineers procrastinate, right? They're fearful, intimidated. Even after passing the FE exam, they're like, you know what, let me breathe a little bit in a relaxed manner. Let me not put on this additional load on my shoulders. Let me just, chill out a little bit. Um, until my supervisor, until my company pushes me to do that. In your case, having a non-power background, jumping into PE power, learning a ton of stuff which even folks who are in the industry are fearful of, being tested on, essentially grounding, bonding, fault analysis, symmetrical components, right? And then on top of that, not having that huge pull. So I want to understand your mindset, like what drove you, like what was the motivation, and how did you keep on pushing forward despite having that setback in between, and being a father of two and working on being a gainfully employed professional and having limited time balancing professional and personal commitments, like what was going through your mind for those several months or for the better part of 2023, I would say?
Yeah, on the limited time perspective there, I really had to work with my wife on a schedule for this because it's hard to study this technical at this technical level when you've got kids present. So she really helped me get through this, and I've got some plans for once this is all fully said and done for us to just take a break because it's been it's been a challenge, and having a support group, and not, my wife is of course the number one at home, but my family, my friends, they were all very supportive in making sure I was able to do this. Even at my work, my coworkers were supportive. Other fellow PEs were really encouraging and stay on it, stay on it. And I learned somewhere along the lines of, you mentioned the motivation for this, when you have like the different kinds of motivation, what motivates you, and when you have that initial motivation and you get into something, you find the things that help motivate you, because they talk about that initial bit where you're trying to get that motivation, and once you do, the rest takes over. You just really enjoy it, and now you don't want to stop. But I have learned recently through, I think it was a YouTube short maybe that said this, you can say that it's motivation in the beginning, but when you learn to have it discipline, don't even feel like you need to be motivated to it. Just discipline yourself. So I'd have my books out, I'd have my calculator out, and I would just go do it. And once I started doing the problems, the thrill of solving the problems and getting them right, even if I wasn't that much into the content, was enough to keep me going for hours at a time. And so I would have 2 to 3 hour study sessions a night to try to really catch up and learn this material. And the other half of that was, that's just the theoretical problems, but I need the theory too. And being able to watch YouTube, you've got the world at your fingertips, it feels like, with that. And there are lots of YouTube channels that talk about the code, and they're actual electricians, and the electricians are in the field. They're out there pulling the lines, and they're out there trying to apply this, what the engineers have designed. And even these master electricians have gotten really experienced with this. They spent years getting to where they are, and there's YouTube channels where there are master electricians going over the code. And what I found is a lot of those things in the book that you need to know about in those code changes are also what the electricians are thinking about. They're worried about the practicality of it all. So me, as someone who's never actually been out and put a line through a conduit in an official stance, I can watch those and get the inside scoop as to what these guys are doing and gals are doing in the field. And that was really enlightening. And I found ways and motivation through their love of their craft, because I'm a cybersecurity person, a software person. So I had like the PLC ladder logic programming. I was all about that. I love to study that. But some of the more specific power stuff, positive, negative, zero sequence components, I wasn't really passionate about fault current analysis. But once you got started in it and you disciplined yourself, you learned why it was needed, and I found the discipline, I should say.
Yeah,
So
and that
that's
is
kind of the story
important.
on that.
So it's a combination of organized effort, let's call it discipline. It's a combination of motivation. It's a combination of being inspired, right, by
Right.
professionals and the desire to learn. I think these are the two, three abstract pieces that helped you get over, and obviously sheer amount of effort that you put in. And so all of those things came together to help you get over the line, right? Now,
Right.
if we just do a contrast between FE electrical and PE power, you briefly commented that FE you can probably get by with a little bit of theory. In the PE power exam, you felt like there was a lot of assumed knowledge as well, field knowledge, right? So somebody who doesn't have that knowledge, and you yourself have gone through that process, right? How do you think they can expedite their learning?
Someone who doesn't have the background knowledge, or maybe not as confident on it, I
Yeah.
think just from going through your course and seeing that, because I failed it the first time, and I know after having taken it the first time, I walked out of the exam feeling like I did well on it. But the difference between the first exam and the second exam is not only did I walk out of the exam knowing what problems I didn't do so well on, I knew why I didn't do well on them in hindsight. I could, in my head, work through the problem afterwards because I knew more about what I was doing. And the practical problems, I could think to myself, okay, wait, why are they throwing this specific thing in there? There's a reason they're doing that. And then in the code book, I could go and say, there's a specific section in here. Maybe it's a specific table that you need to be looking at. And here's the reason why. And your course goes over all the different cases in the code book. Just by looking at the code book, you can kind of throw some examples of what folks might be looking at, what they might be doing, because there's only so many ways that they could try to trick you on some of this. And it's nothing new because it's just how test takers give tests. And it was a great approach to being able to do that and say that I could go in and get a practical understanding of these things based on kind of what you started me with. And I had the jargon loaded, and I could go into YouTube or wherever and plug that in and see that jargon and then know what to type. Because, they say the part of being a Google expert is knowing how to Google something. Once you know what to Google and you have that background that your course gives, you could start to get that practical experience that way. Now, it's not the same as being in the field, sure. But it got me close enough that I was able to pass this, because I don't think, and these are still 6-minute problems, so they do have to limit themselves. And there were definitely some problems where I got very frustrated. I think I gave an audible guffaw. They threw that one in there. I think in hindsight, those are probably the problems that were the throwaways. That's what I tell myself anyway.
So, in short, it is doable, even if you don't
Yes,
have the background, as long
100%.
as I think the common recurring theme is that you should have the willingness to learn, right?
Yes,
It may
put the
not have
time
been
in,
as
like you said.
easy. It may not have been as easy, and I don't think it was as easy for you as it was for folks who have 10 years of power systems experience under the belt,
Right,
but you still pulled it off and are actually better off as compared to those who are still procrastinating for one reason or another reason. And the good thing about, and we were talking this offline, it puts you in a very unique situation in the sense that you're a cybersecurity expert, right? You're a guy with computer networking background, software, hands on experience. And here you are with a level of expertise in power systems that the state board recognizes good enough to give you the stamp, and you can go ahead. And obviously, the more experience you have, the more competent you are going to feel and the more confident you are going to be.
right,
But you're at an intersection, a very interesting intersection of cybersecurity and power systems, right? So
right.
tons and tons of opportunities I see in the future opening up. And this is the basically the flexibility, the freedom, and and basically the privilege that having the P license gives you, that at the moment you may not be able to foresee what it's going to do for you in the future, but I'm confident that all of the efforts that you invested towards this goal are going to handsomely pay off in the future.
And I think it's important to mention that my background, we keep mentioning software. I am an electrical engineering major, but my specialization, the classes that I took, my graduate level, or I should say my 3000 and 4000 level, my professional school courses, those were all VLSI, very large scale integration, embedded circuits, computer architecture, mobile app development. Those were all kind of software things, whereas my power colleagues were taking motor design and all those different courses that would have pertained to power. So I am an electrical engineer. I'm not a computer scientist or something who's truly learning circuits from scratch. I do have some background, and the FE certainly helped. Like you mentioned, I was able to get a lot of the basis. I mean, there's power engineering stuff in the FE, and I think you even allude to the PE when you're giving the FE course. But I do have some background in that field, so it wasn't a total wash on having to come into this. And my day job is mostly Python and a little bit of C and a lot of front end development these days. Which now you're right, I'm in that intersection of security plus. I have that certification, and I know that there's a lot of industry coming on, especially with recent events in the world, that makes my area unique. So job hunting will certainly be interesting if I choose to do that and not stay in my current
Right. That's great. So once again, many congratulations, Charles, on this wonderful achievement, and thanks a lot for your time. It was great having you in both FE and PE programs, being part of your journey, which was not necessarily as smooth as it might have been for some of the other folks, but it actually tells me a lot more about your career, the perseverance. Despite ups and downs, you kept on going and working towards your goal, and here you are with this wonderful achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Wasim, and thank you for the course. And I wish many other students the best of luck that are watching this. And don't give up. And be sure to subscribe and like Wasim's YouTube channel. He didn't tell me to say that. I watch YouTube, so I know how it is. But
Okay.
yeah, stay in it. Don't give up. These videos were motivating, but they also provided me with a means of discipline, because I would hear about the discipline these other students had, and I'd say to myself, I got to do that, or if I want to be where they're at. And here we are.
Awesome. Great.
So thank you, Wasim.
Thanks, Charles. If you like this video, then please don't forget to subscribe this channel. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comment section of this video below. You can find tons of stories of my FE Electrical and PE Power students over here. And if you want to learn more about preparation of these exams, then click here to learn more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video.